Okay, whenever you're ready, Sophia.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Certainly. Regent and Chair Sophia Jappanen.
Present.
Regent Dell Cummings.
Here.
Regent Elise Wright.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the special meeting of the Board of Regents Human Resources and Administration Committee. Before we discuss the action items today, let's go ahead and adopt the agenda. A motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Awesome. Any all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We have a couple of action items on our agenda today and also informational items. And I appreciate the work that went into the matters we have before us today. But before we do that, let's approve the minutes from our last meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 12th committee meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I can't second because I think that's the
I'll
meeting. I
second.
missed. Okay.
I'll second. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I
Any
abstain.
opposed? The abstentions. Okay.
I abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, let's go ahead and move into the meeting. We're going to review and discuss two new policies today that are required under Public Act 25-71, the CSCU Executive Residency Requirements Policy, and the CSCU Uniform Training Policy. The Public Act requires the Board of Regents to adopt both policies by January 1st, 2026. Chief Compliance Officer Cameron Liston has joined us to answer any questions about the requirements of the Public Act, the development of the policies, and the prescribed review process overseen by the CSU Policy Committee. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jennifer Person to provide some background information and kick off the discussion.
Great, thank you. As Chair Jappanen mentioned, we have two policies before us today that were developed by our compliance office as a result of the act. I'll provide a summary of each, and then I'll have Cameron Liston, our Chief Compliance Officer, share information about the system-wide review process that these policies underwent and answer any questions that you may have. So the first one is the Executive Residency Requirements Policy. And it requires the CSCU Chancellor, Vice Chancellors, Presidents, Vice Presidents, and other equivalent executives to establish and or maintain Connecticut residency on the date of appointment to an executive position or within 90 days after the appointment. And there are a few important things to note. The first thing is that the policy applies to the CSCU Chancellor hired on or after July 1st, 2025. It applies to executive positions newly hired or rehired after January 1st, 2026. And the policy also allows employees in executive positions to satisfy the residency requirements by residing within 75 miles of their primary campus or office location. And the second policy is the Uniform Training Policy. It's also effective January 1st, 2026, and it applies to all CSCU employees at all CSCU institutions. It lays out training requirements for new employees and recurring training for existing employees, including those requirements mandated by the state. The policy also addresses specialized additional training, often specific to the needs of the work department or organization, to ensure employees have the necessary skills and knowledge to fulfill the duties of their positions. From an HR perspective, this policy strengthens our commitment to develop a well-trained workforce and reduce institutional risk. So with that said, I'm going to hand the mic over to Cameron so that he can talk about the policy development and review process and answer any questions you may have about these two policies.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good afternoon, Regents. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Jennifer asked me to really go over generally how we are approaching policy development, provide a little background, and then I can give it in the context of these two policies that are in front of you today. So as you know, in June 2025, the Board of Regents adopted the policy on policies with an effective date of August 1st. What that did is really formalize our policy development process and ensure that we have substantial involvement of all the institutions and stakeholders in that process. So where a policy starts really is in the drafting phase. That's not governed by our review process or the policy on policies. Where we pick it up is once a policy draft is produced, by a stakeholder group, by an individual who recognized a gap in controls. And what we do is we facilitate first the review in the context of our broader policy portfolio to ensure that it aligns with our policy priorities, to ensure that it is actually a policy rather than a procedure or guidance or some other similar related document. And then we take a tiered approach. It starts with policy owners. So folks who are going to be the primary individuals responsible for implementing the policy. They get the first pass at review because they're going to be the ones with the technical expertise to determine whether or not the policy is feasible, introduces sufficient controls, or will be too operationally disruptive to adopt. After their review and incorporating all of their feedback, it goes to the stakeholder review tier. That's going to be a broader population of individuals within the CSCU system. And that's going to be folks who are likely to have a substantial impact to their work due to the policy. So they may not be the people implementing it, but certainly it could impact the work that they're doing. And then finally, we have the executive review tier. And that's when the chancellor and the presidents review the policies and ensure that it's consistent with our mission, vision, values, all of the things that make CSCU who we are prior to presentation to board committees and then the full board for adoption. What this process does is it recognizes the importance of the voices at the CSCU system level. And then it also recognizes the authority of the board as the sole policymakers for our system. In this case, I believe that you've either seen the list or if not, I can go through it, but each of these policies were reviewed by dozens across all of our institutions, and all of the feedback was incorporated into what's before you today. So truly the policy drafts, when they get to the committee level, represent what the CSCU system as a whole feels would be the most effective policy given the subject matter. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions about that or specific to these policies.
Can I ask a question? Cameron, thank you for the overview. Two questions I have. I wrote down when I read the material. Will any of the existing executives be affected by this? In other words, will anybody have to move, relocate as a result of this new policy?
No, they will not, as long as their hire date predates January 1. The only retroactive applicability is the July date for the chancellor, because that's in the statute.
Okay. And then can a person have a primary residency in another state or beyond the 75 miles if they have an apartment that is close to the job? So in other words, they have two residencies.
Yes, and so we did, initially we went really into the primary residency as defined by tax law, and then recognized that didn't really make much sense because the residency that's important to us is that you're close to your institution to be able to respond in a reasonable amount of time during the work week, right? That's during your assigned hours when you're available. So yes, we do believe that this policy can be interpreted to allow for that, to have two residencies, as long as when you are on the job, you have a place of residence within the limits of this policy.
Then one last question. We have a location in a part of Connecticut that is very close to the Rhode Island line. So conceivably, you can have somebody who is 5 miles away from the institution, but if they run that, if they're the CEO of that institution, if CEOs are included, then they would not meet the criteria. Does that still apply, that person would have to move?
So the only tier of individuals that are required to be state of Connecticut residents are the 6 institution presidents and the chancellor.
Okay, so it doesn't include the
Campus
CEOs.
presidents are not included in that.
Okay. That's it for my questions.
Any more questions?
Were there questions about the uniform training policy? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, yeah. Okay,
I had a,
well, go
maybe a
ahead,
quick
Bill.
question on the uniform training policy. Uh, In these sorts of, I mean, obviously this is nothing new. Is there ever been a situation where someone could test out of the training? In other words, if the person could demonstrate the knowledge that the training was supposed to, impart, and they demonstrate they already had that knowledge, is that something that has ever been done with some of these training programs?
I would say in general, the way that we operate as an institution differs enough that our preferred method is always to provide the training, even if they're already subject matter experts, through the lens of CSCU. The one area where we do have exemptions for repeating training is when we have transfers from other state agencies. Those satisfying of the state obligation can transfer over with an attestation from the employee.
Okay. Is there, having been a state employee for many years, those training things, oftentimes people tend to multitask when they're going through the training. Is there any provision for after the training, again, a demonstration of subject knowledge?
Yes, many of our trainings do have knowledge checks at the end of them. And the on-demand training isn't the only form of training that we take. So we do have a blend of both in-person and on-demand trainings to ensure that we're getting the information to folks in ways that it's consumable for them. And then beyond that, we have additional educational opportunities to have more discussion forums and things along those lines to really engage people and answer the questions specific to the obligations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I don't have any.
No. Okay, awesome. I'm going to move the policy for the CSU executive residency requirements policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. The policy is approved. I'm going to also go ahead and move the uniform training policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, the motion carries. The policy is approved. That's pretty much it that we have on our list today. Does anyone have any discussions or any more questions?
Just one quick question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is in this agenda item or the following one.
Mhm.
There was one for information only, and there was a notation that we needed to have a compliance officer by January 1, 2026. Did you see that?
Yeah, so the informational item in the agenda was just the actual act itself. We wanted to provide that as a point of reference because these two policies were based on that public act. And then I think Cameron is our system compliance officer.
Oh, okay. So we're set.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we
we're
are
set. I was-
definitely good.
Yeah, so there were a couple.
There's a moment of silence. Yeah.
there were a couple requirements in that statute that we had actually already fulfilled. So we already had the key
Okay.
card policy. We already had a compliance officer, largely because we recognized the value in those, but then also because we understood what was going to be coming, from the state in terms of requirements. And beyond these policies, there are some additional changes that you'll see out of the compliance office. So we are, moving forward with reintroducing the internal audit function at the system level, and that's another big piece that you'll see coming out of this legislation.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Del. All right. Well, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sophia.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Cameron.
Have
Yeah.
a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, our live stream is stopped. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.